Great. Thank you very much. So right on time, we are very punctual today. Welcome, everyone. This is our second session to the Employee Ownership series, our online free series available to the B-Lab ecosystem and more. And we're very happy to have our speakers with us today, as well as you, our participants. Today's session will be about employee ownership and more in the spotlight, steward ownership. And we'll have, we'll go a little bit in depth in the latter one, so the steward ownership, and then we'll also have a discussion with B Corp companies to start and lead your journey. So I welcome you to change your names to your name and then your company in brackets, to turn your camera on and your microphone off. This way we can have an engaging session, and then your microphone on whenever you want to ask a question later on. We will be recording this and sharing the recording and resources after the session. And if you have any questions, you can bring them to the chat and we'll be happy to answer, to address them at some point in the call. So if you can turn your camera on, that'll be very nice. And I'll then introduce myself and my colleague from B-Lab. So I'm Giovanna, I'm the Events and Community Manager at B-Lab, and I'll be leading the session today together with the other speakers. And next to me on the B-Lab slide, I have Sebastian, our Director of B Corp Certification, SMEs, and also our Community Educational Programs Coordinator Manager. Very happy to have you all with us. And our experts for today on the spotlight are Lucas Hotz, the co-founder of Purpose Schweiz, and Kevin Gillett, attorney at law, SBA specialist at Sigma Legal. Lucas will be hosting the first part of the session, explaining the steward ownership concept, and Kevin will then lead the roundtable we'll have with our other B Corps. But before we start, a little bit on the agenda for today. We are gonna, like I said, start with the introduction to steward ownership. This is a bit of a follow-up from the last session. If you were here, then you learned about employee ownership and the concept behind this. And then today we'll turn more into a type of employee ownership, which is steward ownership, explained by Lucas. Then we go to the roundtable, like I said, led by Kevin from Sigma Legal, and we'll be interviewing or asking questions to representatives from Loico, Veleda, 23bis, and Centrasal. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A. We'll open the floor for your questions. But as I said, you can keep them coming in the chat. And before we give the microphone to Lucas, we would like to invite you for a quick Mentimeter so that we set the mood a little bit. So scan the QR code or go to enter the code in the menti.com website. And let's see what comes to your mind when you think about steward ownership. Sebastian, I will leave that part to you.
Thank you very much, Giovanna. You should see my screen here with instruction. Please go to the website on the new tab of your computer, www.menti.com, and enter the code 87 36 85 87. You can also use your mobile phone and just scan the QR code. I see that we're already 6 people on the Mentimeter and more joining. And as soon as we will be a handful more, we'll be able to start with this first question. As Giovanna mentioned, one of our objectives today is to create an interactive session, right? With the expert panelists sharing their insights, sharing their experience, and really opening the floor, be it on the chat or later with the second round of Mentimeter question to you all participants. So now, without further ado, and you can still find the code here on top of the screen, we'd love to hear from you before we get started, just like session 1, to get a sense of the audience as to what words come to your mind when you think about steward ownership. Is the word 3 question mark because you don't know about it yet? is the word, what, exciting, or well, I'd like to know more. I'm not sure what this is all about. We see some answer coming up already. We see philanthropy, care, champion, question mark. It comes, no clue as well. That's all, I think, very helpful information for our speaker and turning also to you, Lucas, to have a sense of the audience in front of us. Definitely about governance, stock, what's the importance of stock and money granting, you know, financial right to employees. We see autonomy, many words coming on, didn't know this term, as well as this no clue, cooperative, purpose-oriented. Of course, steward ownership is purpose-oriented. And now with more than 10 answers in, I think that gives us a solid basis to move forward with, well, the experts' presentation per se. Autonomy, care, governance, and champion will be the main terms here as we will move forward. So thank you very much for sharing your feeling. This helps us read the audience better, and this would certainly be helpful for our expert panelists that will tell you all about steward ownership, their experience, and practical tips in just a few seconds. With that, I'd like to turn over to you, Giovanna.
Thank you. So back to my screen now. And I will give the mic then to Lucas for an introduction to steward ownership. Lucas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about steward ownership, and I'm going to try to take a bit of a different approach as what I usually tell, or how I usually tell the story, just to also kind of make the bridge to what you guys have heard in the first session. I myself am one of the faces of Purpose Strides. We are an organization that has been founded 1 year ago, and we are basically trying to push this topic or this ownership structure forward in Switzerland, and we support others in doing so. So yeah, let's dive right in. Maybe you've seen this guy before. I'm pretty sure that you've heard of his company that he created. It's Bosch, one of the super big, I don't know, household electronics and industrial companies in Germany. And I want to start with a little story on him, because he had kind of a vision. So he, after having built this this enterprise and being in the market for several years, he started to think about who should actually own it. And at some point, he defined for himself that it should always be independent and self-governed as a company. It shouldn't become kind of a playing ball for others, or a speculative object or something like that. It should always be somewhat connected to the family of Bosch and its values. And he wanted the company also to give back to society, because he knew that the company could not exist without being embedded in the whole society, right? So if we go to the next slide, maybe a quick recap before I tell you more about his story is what we heard about ownership, and that's super important when we talk about steward ownership, to know that ownership itself of a company is often seen as a bundle, and it's a bundle of two rights. It's the right to vote, and it's the economic rights. And when we go into steward ownership, we very much look closely at those two rights and who holds which ones of them. And in our society or in our economy, those two being connected kind of are leading to some challenges, or we see them as basically the root of a lot of issues that we have with our economic system. I'll show you that on the next slide, because if money and power are connected, you can basically buy power with money. And that means that the people who have money will basically govern our companies and subsequently a lot of our daily lives. An example of that is Elon Musk being able to buy Twitter. and basically turning it upside down within a year. And on the other hand, people who have power, if they kind of also have an incentive to use that power to maximize their money, that basically leads to the other problem, which we can, for example, see with British Petrol or Shell. Both of them announced in the beginning of this year that they will scale back on their climate targets, but therefore focus on shareholder value. And that's basically what's behind that, right? So they want to serve the people that have the ownership there instead of actually thinking on what's going on in the planet. So these two are examples for the issue that's okay, that are created by having voting and power, voting and capital rights linked. And what Robert Bosch did when he was still alive, at some point he started to give away shares to some of his employees. So he thought like, yeah, why not? I think it's a good idea to incentivize and have them be part of the company. And he gave shares to kind of people in managing positions and so on. And then he observed what happened. And actually, after some years, he bought all of them back because what he realized is those people who he gave shares to, they started to act like shareholders and started to act and in their role as an employee in a way that would maximize their share value instead of maximizing for the purpose of Bosch and for actually why the company exists. So he really kind of observed this and told them that, okay, well, this doesn't work, so I'll take them back. And unfortunately, he did not manage to play around much more with ownership structures. It's okay, Joanna, you can go to the next one. He then passed away, and actually in his testimony, you said it, I don't know, but anyway, what he left behind was kind of, amongst other things, these 3 lines that I showed you in the beginning. And so then some lawyers started to figure out what and how they could kind of create or change the ownership structure of Bosch. Took them around 20 years after his death, and eventually they came up with this solution. And to this day, Bosch is set up this way. So what they did is they gave the ownership of the company of Bosch into 2 entities. There's one entity, which is the Robert Bosch Industrietreuhand KG. They own nearly all the voting rights, but they don't have dividend rights. In this company, there are 10 people, sorry. 5 are from within the company of Bosch, and 5 others are close to the company, like maybe a lawyer, maybe a former employee or something like that. They can only be in these roles or in this company for 5 years, and then they have to give away the seat to the next person. Those people don't have financial incentives, basically, in leading the company, but they have all the voting, or nearly all the voting power on what is happening in Bosch. And then they created the Robert Bosch Foundation, where they gave all the dividend rights to. So basically, if the company kind of has money left at the end of the year, instead of giving this to the shareholders, the ones who decide, they give this to the foundation. And the foundation can't influence the company on how much they get or whatever, or kind of change this. They just receive what's there. The family still also got some part of the voting rights and dividend rights. And actually that is an image of how it was created. By now, the family gave away the dividend rights also to the foundation. So they still have some voting rights, but don't have any dividend rights anymore. And what is interesting about this is that you really have a clear separation of power and money, right? And I'd like to show you now a bit more what are the elements exactly. If we go on right away to the next one. So that's what I basically mentioned. They of voting power and economic rights. And
Lucas,
and the second,
sorry.
Yeah.
You froze a little bit. Can you rewind this last part?
Oh, sorry. Let me
just the start of this
Yeah.
slide.
Okay. So Wait, I'll stop the incoming video. Maybe that's better. So what they did is they really separated voting rights and economic rights. They took apart this bundle that I talked about in the beginning and put those rights into two different entities that are not basically linked anymore. And then the second step, if we go on further exactly, is they redesigned those ownership elements along two principles. And the first principle is basically the self-determination. So it makes sure that the control and the power in this company always lies with people that are directly connected to the company. So this way you assure that you're never steered from afar from absentee owners that basically today mostly have financial interests then, but don't really know the market, the product, clients, employees, and so on and so forth, right? So you want to make sure that your company is self-governed. And I think that's a crucial element in employee ownership in general. And the second element, and that's what's kind of additional to the employee ownership things that we've already heard, is the purpose orientation. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you kind of define one purpose and you have to follow this forever, but you define that your company is always acting towards a purpose and that it can never act just for the means of making money. Making money is good and it's also inherently important for a sustainable economy, but it should always be for something, for a purpose, right? So it should never be a means by itself. And that's why steward-owned companies, they make sure that they're always purpose-oriented and that money or value that is created is basically connected to that purpose, stays within the company, and is only extracted in a limited amount. Exactly. So these are the two principles, very important. And the third step is that you make sure that the structure that you create cannot be changed in the future, because that's something. If I today say yes, I do this, and super great, I follow these principles for 20 years, and eventually I go on, someone else takes over my place, and they're like, oh wow, nice, Lucas did some pretty good job. Now I can cash up on it or cash in. I'll change that and sell the company or whatever. So that should not be makes really that whole promise or concept so much stronger when you know you can't change it or can't kind of come back from it. And that's done in a legal way by writing certain things in your bylaws and so on and so forth. There's different ways of doing that. I won't go into the very detail here, but happy to explain more if you want later in the Q&A or at another point in time. Exactly. And if we go on, exactly, that's what we call steward ownership. So when you have these two principles and a legal securitization in the long run, then that's basically what we call steward owned. Exactly. And the next one, what we think or why this is interesting is it provides a solution for different kind of needs, entrepreneurial needs. So one is the succession. You might have heard a year ago, Patagonia announced that Yvon Chouinard basically gave away his company to nature. What he actually did is he put it in a steward ownership structure. So he gave the voting rights into the Patagonia Foundation and he gave the capital rights into a trust fund. So he did a pretty similar concept as to what Bosch did. And this way he made sure that there is people leading this company in the future that kind of don't have a financial interest, but have only the interest of leading Patagonia on its purpose. And that's also working for a lot of other companies. Also, I don't know, standard SMEs, family businesses, and so on, they have challenges in finding successors. And so steward ownership can really be an interesting solution there. A second point is coherence. So we have an example from Switzerland as well, Crowd Container, they're in Zurich. And when they started to talk to investors, those investors would eventually all want some multiple and so on. And for them, it was clear if they would do this, if they would kind of take on these investors, they would be forced to change their business model. They would be forced to demand higher prices from their clients, or kind of push down the prices of their producers, and they knew that eventually they will go out of business because they will lose credibility. And so for them, it was inherently important that their ownership structure kind of reflected also what they do in business and doesn't kind of speak another language. And another example is Ecosia or Signal or some other kind of, you would have called them unicorns. You could call them zebra startups. That's another topic to dive into. But they want to make sure that they always stay impact oriented and kind of, even though they grow very big, don't at some point become weak when the offer becomes too big to decline, basically. So that's basically one of the reasons why Christian Kroll, the founder of Ecosia, did this and basically gave away the value of his company to itself, like to the company itself, still being compensated for his efforts in the founding phase, of course. Exactly. And then maybe one last thing, this whole structure is not completely new. As I told you with the example of Bosch, there's others like Zeiss, and there's a whole bunch of companies in Denmark who are set up this way. And that also allowed the market to do research on it. And it showed that these companies have some huge benefits compared to companies that are not steward owned. So very simply put, they survive longer. So they exist simply longer in the economy. They lead to less concentration of wealth. They enable more social mobility. So you don't have to be born into the right families and so on to kind of go up and down the ranks of a company and so on. They perform better in sustainability because they are, and that's super important, they're not forced in this short-term value creation for shareholders. So they can act much more long-term. And when you can act long-term, you obviously think also more sustainable. And they're more resilient. They have better intrinsic motivation of their employees, and then therefore people also leave the company less quickly and so on. So really a lot of benefits that come out of this, and that's really simple because you change something at the very core of the company, and that is who you actually work for and where does the money go towards and what incentives are there. So at the first glance, it might seem like a boring legal structure, but it actually is like a stone that you throw into a puddle, and then it creates this ripple and goes down into all the actions that the company takes. Yeah, so I think I'm reaching my last slide, which is kind of close to my heart, that I want to give you on your journey. Employee ownership is great, but really think about what incentives are behind this. Like engaging your employees through giving them or by giving them shares is super cool, but really think about what they're incentivized to act upon and how they will act by those incentives. So not just thinking about the voting power part, but also thinking about the capital part in this whole story when you think employee ownership. Yes, I think that's it for my slides, if I'm not wrong. Yes.
Yes, that's it. There are some more slides that Lucas left as inspiration. So once you receive the slides, you can go through, and then there will be another slide next to this one with some clickable links, and then you can get some inspirations that he left for you. Thank you, Lucas. And do you already have any questions for him based on what has been presented right now? Maybe questions will also come after our B Corps speak. So I don't see anything coming, which means
also happy to invite you all to, yeah, you can text me anytime write me an email on lucas@purpose.ag, or yeah, just reach out. You can also find me on LinkedIn, of course, and so on.
That
I would
being said,
actually like
then
to
oh,
pose a question, if that's okay.
please.
So I think for many companies, and even just people in the call, as we saw, this is all fairly new. I think many companies are far away from actually doing employee ownership. But in your view, Lucas, what is the closest step that companies can start with? What is the one step closer that maybe everyone could take?
I mean, I think the very beginning or the very first step is to start thinking about ownership and to start thinking about who actually owns this company and what interests are there, like underlying those whole actions, right? Are you working for the private pocket of some people? I don't know, what we often see is like kind of companies that are self-organized and so on. And then at some point they realize, well, actually there's this other layer of owners who, if push comes to shove, they are the ones who decide because they own this company, right? So they realize, okay, there is kind of a mismatch. So already starting to think about that, I think is very valuable. And then you can start by implementing some elements, right? Like, as I said, like giving or making sure that the voting rights are mainly within people from within the organization, for example, or that you kind of start limiting capital rights of the ones who have voting rights, so that you make sure that those who have the power don't have mainly financial interests, but actually have the purpose at heart of the company, or like also in front of them. So there's like, you can start by taking one element or the other, and I think it's all of that is already very good and very nice. Obviously, it's super great if you incorporate all three elements, like the two principles and the legal long-term securitization, but maybe it's also a step-by-step thing, and that's what we also see. And yeah, so that's, I think, what I can advise you on. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Camilla, you can ask your question.
Thank you. Actually, do you know Patagonia, the owner, if he kept the voting rights or the economic rights?
No, he didn't. He basically gave everything away, but I think he's still involved in, or like, I think he has quite some power in the foundation that he created. So he basically gave all the voting rights to the Patagonia Foundation, and in there, he's still very much involved. That's something that the whole governance structure of the foundation, we don't know everything. Not everything of that is public, actually. But yeah, he's still very much involved there. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, he gave the stuff away. But I think there were probably ways for him to make sure that he doesn't have to worry about money anymore for the rest of his life. So, and probably also his kids.
No, definitely. But I'm just thinking like, because I find this model very interesting, but like an SME, you are the owner, the founder, and it must be hard to, like, you work a lot every day, so you want to keep a bit of voting rights, but then you don't get the benefit of it.
I mean,
economic ones.
I mean, you do get some economic benefits. You can still be compensated for your work, and you probably can also be compensated more than other employees and so on. But I think the crucial thing is that you don't just have this carrot in front of you of infinite growth and always more and more and more. So whatever is possible, I want to strive for that. But you kind of more go with it as with an approach of how much is enough. Like, how much is enough for what I'm doing, for the risk and responsibility that I'm taking, get compensated for that, which is absolutely fine and completely by the principles as well, but not with that goal of unlimited growth, because it's just doesn't work. We're not living in an unlimited world. Our world is limited, so all our companies can't strive for unlimited growth. And that's basically what's happening in our economy. All the companies work on that principle that they at some point can sell at a higher price, and whoever buys it, they will want to sell it again at a higher price, right? So otherwise it wouldn't work for them. So it's the system in that case then doesn't work. But if people were like, yeah, well, I'm taking responsibility, a lot of risk, whatever, and I'm getting compensated for it, but that's not indefinitely high, right? And that's, I think, what's important. And as long as these people are still involved in the company, they also can have a lot of power, right? And a lot to say there. Yeah. Does that somehow answer it?
Yeah. It's a thinking in progress, but thanks.
You're welcome.
So on that note, I'm gonna move to our roundtable, and then there will be more time for questions later. Probably also questions coming from the roundtable. So I'd like to introduce you to our roundtable panelists and also to our moderator. So the moderator is Kevin from Sigma Legal, like I showed in the first slides. And to this roundtable, we will have Gabriel, co-founder and production director from 23bis, Isaline Torrens, governance project manager from Lyco, Brita Meis, global communications manager, Veleda, and I believe Mathieu is not here.
I think indeed we would have to do without Mathieu,
Yeah.
but we have 3, even 4 great speakers around the table.
Yes, Mathieu is a surgeon, so sometimes he just can't help it and needs to rush into the room. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other, and I will open the microphone or leave the floor to Kevin.
Hi, everybody. So nice to meet you. I think we had very interesting topic that we discussed earlier today with the steward ownership. In this roundtable, we'll open a bit more the different perspectives, not only to talk about steward ownership, but to talk in general about employee ownership. So a bit more general, so meaning that we will encompass any situation where the employees could own part of the company, meaning either financial rights, voting rights, or both. Maybe I'll start with the first question to the 3 panelists is, within your company, how do you see that employee ownership would or has impacted the workplace culture?
Who starts? I'm happy to share a word.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Cool. Nice to be here with all of you. So we're a small creative studio of 25 people based in Switzerland. And we started studying those plans over 2 years ago, going really in depth about a plan called Phantom Plan, which I can come back a bit later on it. But then it's something that we've put on pause for a while, just because we didn't felt that it was right or that it was the right moment, and also because as maybe you've seen through those presentations, there's some complexity in the way what is the right plan for your company. There's also a lot of legal terms that a lot was, I think, scary for us at this time, and we were not ready as a company. And I think through with time, and also through following this program with B-Lab, our initial goal was to first think of our organization in the company before of finding the right plan. So at the moment, what we are doing is really studying how the company is organized in terms of roles and structure and decision-making in the company. So, I mean, Lyco is a great example, having this bisocracy or Lycocracy they have. It's also something, sorry, I call it bisocracy, it's what we're calling it at the moment, but holocracy. It's something that we are implementing at the moment, and at the side, through this program, we're really rethinking also all those plans. And at the moment, the one that's the most appealing to our structure and our vision of the company is really a simple and ordinary share plans. And yeah, we have two interests. I mean, a lot of interest here. There's of course the voting interest of giving also space and more voices to the company, which is owned at the moment by 3 people, including me, and also an economic reason. I mean, overall, we're really thinking globally as a company to bring in incentives for our employees, and we have a lot of people that are here for 7-8 years from the start of the company, and we're really trying to build this for the future. And I think one of our goals would be to pérenniser, like make the company last longer without like only the 3 founders taking all the decisions. So this is why we're studying different plans. So sorry, it was a long speech, and we don't have more clue or knowledge or advancement in here, but it's just very interesting, I think, for how our company is organized and for the future of it.
Thank you. It's interesting in your answer, because to me, of course, it was a long answer, but I think it's necessary to have sometimes longer answers, because it demonstrates that within the company, it's not a decision that you can make from one day to the other. You cannot wake up in the morning and in the afternoon you have the plan and everything works smoothly. It's a process that where you need to think in terms of governance. You need to think in terms of succession. So you mentioned that you don't want to stay in the long term only with the 3 founders. So this is one element. You also mentioned at the beginning, which is also a reflection that I also see with some certain organization or company, where they say, okay, we make a phantom share plan, which works in some way, because it is a plan where you will only share some profit of the company, but it does not involve the voting rights. And it may suit many companies, especially startups, where the governing structure is not so strong at the beginning. But then the reflection that you had, I think it really demonstrates that it's an ongoing process and it will evolve over time.
And we stopped about this phantom plan because we were asking ourselves, why are we doing this? And initially we decided to go with a phantom plan because we just thought, oh, this is the plan that's the less risky. So we're giving something to the employee, but not everything. And then we're like, okay, but no, it's not what we want at the end. So this is why we didn't, like, all the contracts were ready, but we just stopped everything.
Okay. Maybe if I can ask maybe the same or similar question, maybe to Loico or to Veleda, who company, I don't know exactly where you're in the process. I know Loico is very advanced. I don't know, maybe regarding Veleda, if one of you can follow up.
Sure. Should I take the floor? Yeah.
Yes, please.
So maybe as well, just a word on Loico and our employee ownership system before directly answering your question, because maybe some of you were not there last session. I don't know. I don't know actually if everyone is there. So yeah, we are a company, a Swiss company who provides services to other companies. We are currently about 130 employees, and we function without a hierarchy. So we function in as Gabriel said, an organization system that's inspired from holacracy. So we call it loicocracy, but basically we give up as much authority. We really want to distribute authority in the teams and like as much autonomy as possible and in roles, etc. And so Loico really wanted to be like a collective project, a collective enterprise from the start. And so it all also started as an employee ownership kind of structure. I think for a very short period, there were just the two founders who put in some money, but already in the first year, about 20 people, I think, invested in the company, 20 employees. And we have this open system where everyone who joins the company, now it's really even shorter the time, just after our trial period, we can invest and buy one share, from one share to more, if there is available. And so today we are 53 shareholders, and I'm one of them. And so it's a really participatory system, which works really well. So in terms of how it impacts our culture, I mean, it's also very linked because it's very coherent with how we are organized internally as well. So it's very linked to that. But so it is obviously a very participatory system, which makes employees very engaged. So already as an employee, but even more as a shareholder, like it's really like we are Loico and Loico is us. So really it's our company basically, even if we own one share. So it really strengthens the entrepreneurial spirit. So maybe just to say a word also, so so for us the money right and the voting right, so that is linked. So you have a share, you have a vote, and you have dividend if we make profit, which has only happened once since our creation. So basically, we meet 4 times a year. So we are involved in really strategic decisions regarding the company. So that makes us, more aware of where the company is going. It develops, as I was saying, entrepreneurial spirit. So you're really trying to think ahead, trying to think what's best for the company in the future, how it has to evolve with the evolution of the market, the evolution of the society, etc. And so it makes us really engaged with Loico in the longer term. And it makes us also very aware of why decisions are made. I mean, we can make the parallel to the Swiss democracy. We are consulted, we are informed before making decisions because we can vote on them, we can challenge them, etc. So it takes a little bit of time. But then when decisions are made, then we know why, and we're not going to complain about them. So it's a bit, if you make the parallel with the Swiss system and the French system, where everyone is always striking because they didn't have a say in the decisions that are made for them. So there's also this spirit of like, don't complain, because you can do something about it, or you have your word. So that's also a long answer.
Thank you. No, it also helps. I think from what I know from Loico, it's also it's very much coherent between the way the governance is organized within Loico and the way the shareholders are organized. So it's really the way completely transformed, or it evolved together with the development of the company. And I think it's also something to be taken into consideration, where governance and employee ownership are very strongly linked one with each other, and one will depend on the other aspects. Maybe we can ask now to Veleda, what is your stand? Also, what is your view? Sure. And then we can move on a couple of other questions or challenges. Thank you.
So we're very much at the purpose stage, and also we have the component of self-determination also in there, but we are not in the actual employee ownership concept. For us, it's really about being value-driven, being purpose-driven. And so we incorporated our purpose into our corporate strategy 2 years ago. And of course, that's a huge identification point for our employees. we really see that everything we do is based on values. So this also goes into this part that it's not the feeling of working for profit that then goes to a shareholder for other purposes. So yeah, we have a very strong base there. And the other part, we also have some holocratic parts in our company. But of course, we also saw that in terms of ownership, in terms of how much you feel responsible, there are also really some challenging points in there. Some people just rather work with clear leadership, with clear, roles. And so, as you might have noticed, we actually just got a new CEO after working without a CEO for a few years. So in some parts, we also see, okay, being holocratic works in some teams and in others not. And this is still a process.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you perfectly anticipate my next question, which has to regard with the potential challenges that you had. So I think you already answered on behalf of Veleda. Maybe with Loico, where did you face some challenges or some resistance from some employees or managers with regard to this horizontal system that you have developed?
So regarding the horizontal system is different than regarding just the shareholding system, because in a way the shareholding system was kind of there from the start. So there was not really resistance. And anyways, if you want to become a shareholder, you can. There's no criteria, but if you don't want, you don't. So that there was not so much challenges. I mean, it's always like we're always thinking about it. If we have to make it evolve, to make it with our growth, or should we change the way, like to make it more attractive? So we're always questioning how it works, but not real challenges. But then for the governance itself, of course, then you have to make sure you can reassure the board that it's going to be okay, because we changed. So the governance changed 5 years ago. So at first we did have an executive committee, we had directors, we had managers, and we got rid of this 5 years ago. So then we needed to convince the board, some senior managers as well, some people left. Of course, then you have some resistance, and you need to be able to face it, to be ready.
Maybe a kind of a provocative question I have for you, for Loico. As you can, if I understand correctly, as you can buy shares when you are an employee, does it not create some imbalance? Because if you have some wealth, you could buy more shares, even if you're new to the company. Whereas someone who is maybe more ancient does not have enough cash to purchase these shares. Did you address this element in the plan, or any possibility to balance this situation?
So what is quite good is that quite naturally the ancient ones, the senior ones, they bought shares when the company was small, was still a startup, so it was cheaper. So basically our system quite values seniority, because now their shares are worth much more, and the risk taking, because obviously when the company was small and fastly growing, it was also much more risky. So today they have more, and as you come in, you put in a small amount of money, and then as the longer you get, the more maybe if Loico still grows, then you'll have your share will be worth more. So we can buy from one share. So one share today is 2,000 francs. So it's quite affordable. And also Loico can lend up to 50% of the amount if you want. So it's easy to get in. And because we have this system, so for all the current decisions during the year, in this time that we meet, it's actually one person, one vote, one person, so one shareholder, one vote. So we are all equal, even if we have 1 or 200 shares. But then for the more strategic decisions, like in the General Assembly, then it's the double majority of shares and people. But then also to be able to buy, you need some people to sell. And so people don't come up like, okay, I'm selling for 200,000 this year. So please, who can buy? So normally it's more small amounts of shares who are sold every year to newcomers, and also we make sure. So in our system, it's the priority comes to those who have no shares or have the smaller amount of shares who can buy. So you make sure it's always more and more people coming in, and not just people gaining more power or more money.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very interesting also to see the way it's being also organized, the dynamics also that are involved in the company. Also, we also see when you explain that there is this double majority for these important decisions, we see that it's really not only shares, but it's really the corporate structure that allows you, maybe in terms so that everybody understands, where there is this double majority. In other terms, it's also like a veto right that you have, because you could, even if you do not have a lot of shares, you could veto some important decision, because you could say, no, we'll not reach the double majority because we, as minority shareholder, we block this decision. So this also creates an interesting dynamic within the organization. Maybe just a last question to you, Gabrielle. Also in terms of, I know that the plan is still not in place, but have you already faced some resistance, or in the discussions that you had with the employees, were they already involved at this stage in order to see how the plan will fit, or is it only between the founders that you have discussed at this time?
Yeah, thanks for the questions. For now, they are really involved in this holacracy system. So it's a system that we're building with everybody. So this is like I think a first step to like just having really a lot of transparency in the company. And the second step of me studying all those plans and following those things are only with the founders. But it's having shares, it's something that we feel that it's important for employees, that a few people has brought up over the last 2-3 years. So it's really something that came up also directly from them, and that they know that we are studying, but they are not involved at the moment. And I think one of the reason why is for me already there was so much complexity in understanding everything that I didn't initially I couldn't imagine how to bring those complex information to my team, which is like a really creative focused team. But I think also having those sessions that are recorded are going to be helpful, and having also with B Corp doing this lexic, or I don't know how you say in English, with all the terms and to facilitate and understand the plans is really going to be helpful for us as a company to just share it to them and make it more understandable overall.
Thank you very much.
Don't be afraid that they will kick you out.
And hey, I just had one question for Eveline. I didn't understand before about the double majority. Who has this?
So, well, actually, for strategic projects, to pass, we need the board of director has to agree, and also the shareholders. And within the shareholders groups, we take the double majority. So you need to have the majority, but that's just for the most strategic decisions and approvals, like in the formal general assembly. But you need, so let's say we are 53 shareholders, so you need 27 people, and you need 51% of the shares values as well.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.
you.
I give the floor now to Vanna, I think, for last couple of questions.
Yes, so thank you very much, Nicole, for your engagement in this roundtable. Actually, first to the rest of the audience, do we have more questions for our panelists, for Kevin or Lucas? Yes, Nathan?
Maybe I can just add, I think I think it's quite difficult that it's such a technical topic also. And I just want to say, I think first step is this mind shift set, and also the kind of emotional part behind it. I think that kind of goes a bit lost when you know, when you talk about the shares and all this kind of stuff. So I think any feedback in terms of like how people feel about this aspect, what's important to them, would also be nice to hear.
Before we address this, then let's also gather another question from Nathan, and then we can address the two questions.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, Iselin, this is for you because it's kind of technical on the implementation side. I'm curious how the share price is fixed. Are you like on the public market, or is there like an internal valuation that you continue to keep updated? Because that's a key part of when you're offering to, you know, sell shares, you have to say how much they're worth. And you said they've gone up in value over time. Is that just an internally agreed upon value? And kind of follow up on that is, do you find a significant amount of like administrative overhead in doing this, because you have to change share registers and like add people as they come in, and if they want to sell their shares, they have to like be removed from the share register, etc. So those are my two very specific questions.
Should I answer these? Oh, yeah, it's quite quick.
Yeah, open floor.
Okay. So yeah, we have a formula. It was more a bit of a startup kind of formula to evaluate the value of our shares at the beginning of the years, and now it's changed to something more for a more stable organization. So yeah, it's something that is obviously known to everyone, and doesn't change every year. It's just but can be changed by all the shareholders, and it's not so much trouble administratively, like speaking. We have these rounds of between January and June. We see, okay, who wants to sell, who wants to buy. So Sebastian is the facilitator for our shareholding circle, and then yeah, we have standard contracts. So we sell from one person to the other, and then in June we just change the register at the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, we just add the newcomers to the list, so it's not that big.
Maybe just to add on the transfer of shares, if you have an LLC, an SARL, so a GmbH, it will create more administrative work, because you will need to always go to the commercial register to change who is the owner of the shares. Whereas if you have a limited company as Loico, you only need to update the internal share register. So it does not require that you go through the authorities. As long as the shares, the number of shares, the values remains the same, you can do this internally. So of course it creates some administrative work, but not one where you're dependent from the answer from the authorities.
We are not SARL, we are SA.
Yeah, of course, you're SA, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, but we need to change our name at the register, at the public register.
And maybe somebody can address Brita's question on the emotional aspect of the shares. How, if you have encountered that, or how to deal if
I mean, not on the share. I mean, just besides the technical story behind it, that is very complex, and it's very, very interesting to hear what you're going through, what you've gone through. It's really impressive. I just think, when I think about how I worked at a big corporation where, yeah, we did have a purpose, but in the end we were shareholder focused, you know, and I left feeling, okay, whatever I do here, this money is just to raise the price, you know, and it's just going somewhere, just growth, 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 growth. So this was really kind of almost feeling like burning you out in a way, you know. And I feel like this part of being really able to say, yeah, of course, we see that there is profit is necessary to some extent so that we can actually really achieve something and change things and reinvest. But to work for a company where you can really say it's not about just unlimited growth, you know, we do see where's the real value, where do we have to focus our assets to give back to nature and all that. That is really motivating to me, and I just want to show, okay, there's this limit that can be done by the talking about the purpose, talking about the not just being in the growth mindset, in the profit growth mindset. That is very, to me, very much like a very good first step into this topic. If someone here is feeling still quite far away from it. Maybe you have similar experiences. That's what I was interested to hear. Is anyone at the point where they say working for a big corporation that just goes for shareholder value is not an option for me anymore?
Anyone?
Maybe I can share that I was.
Yes.
I encountered that as well. You know, studying sustainability. I was doing a master's, learned so many new topics, and then I was working at a company that I was like, well, that has nothing to do with what I see. So
yeah, and
not
for me,
anymore, but
very, very important as well. I mean, I was working in the non-for-profit sector before, and so I couldn't work just to make my boss rich. So I mean, we are a B Corp, so we know that profit is just like the minimum, like our objectives in terms of profit is just the minimum to make it achieve what we want to achieve. But the rest is our impact, is how we treat our people, and we are all shareholders. So we really try to suppress that divide, employee employer. We are all we work for Loico and for the world. So yeah, it's very.
On this very positive note, we're gonna close our session today. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for participating and joining us. Our next and last session will be on foundation ownership. So yet another model of employee ownership, and we'll have Delphine from Purpose Lawyers explaining this concept to us. And then we'll also dive again into Q&A. So if your question couldn't be answered today, please join again in 2 weeks. You can register in the same link that you used before. And yeah, thank you all also to Isaline, Lucas, Brita, Kevin, and Gabrielle for participating today. And I wish you all a lovely afternoon.
Thank
Same to
you.
you. Thank you. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.